The man almost pulled the trigger. At the edge of his wheat field, something moved in the tall golden stalks. For weeks the colony news had warned everyone, alien refugees were arriving. Some said they were dangerous. Others said they were desperate. Daniel Carter tightened his grip on the old plasma rifle. "Come out," he called. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the wheat slowly parted. A young alien woman stepped forward. She was smaller than Daniel expected. Thin. Exhausted. Her skin shimmered faintly like moonlight, and her dark eyes carried the kind of fear Daniel had only seen once before, during the war. But what made his heart freeze were the two tiny children hiding behind her legs. They were barely standing. Hungry. The alien woman raised both hands slowly, showing she carried no weapon. Her voice trembled. "Human, please." Daniel didn't move. She swallowed, her voice breaking. "I'll work your fields. I'll carry water. I'll do anything." The children clutched her clothing as if the wind itself might steal her away. Then she said the words that shattered the silence of the farm. "Just, feed my children." Daniel felt the rifle grow heavier in his hands. All the warnings from the Colony Council echoed in his head. Aliens are unpredictable. Aliens cannot be trusted. But the two little faces staring at him weren't monsters. They were just hungry. Daniel slowly lowered the rifle. The alien woman gasped softly in relief. But neither of them knew something far more dangerous was already watching from orbit above the quiet human farm. And by sunrise, Daniel's simple act of kindness would change the fate of an entire alien species. Daniel had never planned to shelter aliens. Especially not 3 of them. Yet 30 minutes later the alien woman and her children sat quietly at his wooden kitchen table. The children stared at the bread like it was treasure. Slowly, the alien mother whispered gently to them. But the little ones could barely control themselves. Daniel placed another plate down. "Eat," he said. The children didn't hesitate. For a moment the room was silent except for small hungry bites. The alien woman did not eat. Daniel noticed. "You too," he said. She hesitated. "I must make sure they are full first." Daniel leaned back in the chair, studying her carefully. "What's your name?" She looked up. "Lyra." Daniel nodded. "I'm Daniel." The smallest child peeked over the table. "Are all humans kind?" The question caught Daniel off guard. He chuckled softly. "No. But we try." Lyra finally took a small piece of bread. Her eyes closed the moment she tasted it. Relief. Real relief. But Daniel noticed something strange. Through the window, the sky flickered for a split second. A faint light. Too high to be aircraft. Too precise to be natural. Daniel stood slowly. "What's wrong?" Lyra asked. He didn't answer. Because deep in his gut, the old soldier instincts were already screaming. Someone had followed them. And if Daniel was right, the people coming for Lyra weren't rescuers. They were hunters. Daniel stepped outside the farmhouse slowly. The night air had turned strangely quiet. Even the wind moving through the wheat fields had stopped, as if the land itself was holding its breath. High above the farm, a faint shadow moved across the stars. Daniel's jaw tightened. "Damn," he muttered. Old instincts from the war returned instantly. Inside the house, Lyra stood near the window, watching him. The moment she saw his expression, the color drained from her glowing skin. "They found us," she whispered. Daniel looked back at her. "Who?" Lyra hugged her children closer. "The Varkesh hunters." The name meant nothing to Daniel. But the fear in her voice meant everything. "What do they want?" he asked. Lyra's voice trembled. "My species, we carry genetic archives. Our children hold information from thousands of worlds. Daniel frowned. So they're after your kids? Lyra nodded slowly. They hunt our young. They sell them to war empires. For a moment Daniel said nothing. Then something in his expression changed. The same cold look soldiers get when a line has been crossed. Inside the house, the children were quietly playing with a small wooden toy Daniel had carved years ago. They had no idea monsters were coming for them. Daniel turned toward the barn. Lyra's voice followed him. What are you doing? Daniel opened an old metal locker hidden behind farm equipment. Inside were things he had promised never to use again. A combat rifle. Armor plates. A military transmitter. He lifted the rifle and checked the charge. Humans, Daniel said quietly, have a rule. Lyra watched nervously. What rule? Daniel looked toward the stars where the hunters were descending. If you threaten children. He loaded the rifle with a sharp metallic click. You picked the wrong planet. Far above the quiet farm, the Varkesh dropship began its descent. And the hunters had no idea. They weren't landing on a helpless world. They were landing in a human's home. The night sky split open with a deep mechanical roar. A dark dropship descended slowly above Daniel's farm, its engines glowing blue against the stars. Wind blasted across the wheat fields as the ship lowered itself toward the ground. Inside the farmhouse, Lyra held her children tightly. They're here, she whispered. The younger child began to cry softly. Lyra tried to calm him, but her own hands were shaking. Outside, Daniel stood near the barn, armor strapped across his chest and the rifle resting against his shoulder. The dropship landed in the middle of the field with a heavy metallic thud. For a moment, everything went silent. Then the ramp opened. 3 tall figures stepped out. The Varkesh hunters were enormous, taller than any human. Their black armor reflected the moonlight, and their glowing red eyes scanned the farm like predators. One of them spoke through a harsh mechanical translator. Alien female. Surrender the offspring. Daniel didn't move. The hunter's gaze shifted toward him. Human, the translator growled. This does not concern your species. Daniel slowly raised the rifle. It does now. The hunters exchanged a glance. One of them laughed, a cold, metallic sound. You believe you can stop us? Daniel's voice was calm. I don't need to stop you. The hunter tilted his head. Explain. Daniel looked toward the farmhouse window where 2 small alien children were watching nervously. Then he looked back at the hunters. I just need to delay you. Suddenly the military transmitter on his belt beeped. A distant thunder rolled across the sky. The hunters looked up. Dozens of streaks of light appeared high above the atmosphere. Human ships. Daniel smiled slightly. Because when humans hear someone is hunting children, the sky erupted with incoming fleet signatures. We don't come alone. And for the first time that night, the Varkesh hunters realized they had made a terrible mistake. The sky above Daniel's farm turned into a storm of light. Dozens of human ships tore through the clouds, their engines burning like falling stars. Massive cruisers and sleek fighters formed a silent wall across the night sky. For the first time, the Varkesh hunters hesitated. Their leader slowly looked upward. This is impossible, the translator hissed. Daniel rested the rifle casually on his shoulder. Not really, he replied. A powerful voice suddenly echoed across the field through orbital speakers. Unknown Varkesh vessel, the voice said calmly. You have entered protected human territory. One of the hunters snarled. This planet is not registered under human authority. Daniel smirked slightly. It is now. Inside the farmhouse, Lyra and her children watched the sky through the window. The smallest child whispered, Mama, are those humans? Lyra nodded slowly, stunned. Yes, many humans. High above, the largest human cruiser moved forward. Its massive cannons slowly aimed toward the Varkesh dropship. The human commander spoke again. You are accused of trafficking sentient children across multiple star systems. The Varkesh leader's voice turned cold. You would start a war for alien offspring. For a moment, there was silence. Then the human commander answered with quiet certainty. We wouldn't start one. The cannons powered up with a deep hum that shook the air. But we will absolutely finish one. The hunters realized something terrifying. The humans weren't bluffing. Down on the farm, Daniel leaned against the barn and looked up at the fleet. The Varkesh had traveled across the galaxy hunting children. But tonight they had chosen the worst possible place to land. A quiet human farm. And humans had a very simple rule when it came to children. No matter what world they came from. Children were off limits. The night sky above the quiet farm had turned into a battlefield. Human warships surrounded the small Varkesh dropship like silent giants. Their weapons glowed softly, waiting. Inside the alien ship, the hunters were no longer confident. Their leader stared at the overwhelming human fleet on the scanner. Impossible, he growled. Across the field, Daniel stood calmly with his rifle resting against his shoulder. Above him, the human commander spoke again through the massive orbital speakers. You will power down your ship and surrender. The Varkesh leader replied angrily. You would risk interstellar conflict, for 2 alien children. The human commander answered without hesitation. This is not a negotiation. The enormous cannons of the human cruiser slowly charged. Their deep vibration shook the air across the farm. Inside the farmhouse, Lyra held her children close as they watched the sky filled with ships. Tears slowly formed in her glowing eyes. Why? She whispered. Daniel glanced toward her. Because they're kids. Lyra shook her head in disbelief. Across the galaxy, species fight over resources, power, territory. Daniel shrugged slightly. Yeah. Humans do that too sometimes. Then his voice became firm. But there's one thing most of us agree on. The Varkesh ship tried to lift off suddenly. A warning alarm rang across the human fleet. The commander's voice echoed again. Last warning. The hunters ignored it. Their engines roared as they tried to escape the atmosphere. For half a second, the sky was completely silent. Then the human commander gave the order. Disable the target. A precise beam of energy shot down from orbit. The Varkesh engines died instantly. Their ship crashed hard into the empty wheat field. And in that moment, the galaxy learned something new about humans. You could threaten their planets. You could challenge their fleets. But if you hunted children, humans would come for you. The smoke slowly cleared over the quiet wheat fields. The damaged Varkesh ship lay half buried in the dirt, its engines dead and its hunters already captured by human forces. Above the farm, the human fleet still hovered silently like watchful guardians. But the battle was over. Daniel stood near the barn, watching soldiers secure the crashed ship. A human officer approached him and extended a hand. Daniel Carter. Daniel shook it. Yeah. The officer smiled slightly. You caused quite a situation tonight. Daniel shrugged. They were hunting kids. The officer nodded. Exactly why command responded so fast. Inside the farmhouse, Lyra stepped outside slowly with her 2 children holding her hands. The children stared in awe at the huge human ships floating in the sky. One of them whispered softly, Mama, are we safe now? Lyra looked around the peaceful farm. At the wheat fields. At the human soldiers. At Daniel standing quietly beside the barn. For the first time in a long time. She smiled. Yes, she said gently. We're safe. The officer walked over to Daniel again. Command has a proposal, he said. Daniel raised an eyebrow. For me. The officer nodded toward Lyra and the children. The galaxy is dangerous right now for their species. Daniel looked at the two small aliens nervously holding their mother's hands. Then the officer finished the sentence. So Command wants to know if this farm might be willing to sponsor 3 new residents. Daniel pretended to think for a moment. Then he sighed dramatically. Well, the wheat fields are big. The children looked up hopefully. Daniel smiled. I guess I could use some help working them. Lyra's eyes filled with quiet tears. Not from fear this time. From relief. And far above the small farm, the human fleet slowly departed. Because the mission was complete. The hunters were gone. And on a quiet human farm, an alien mother and her children had finally found something rare in the galaxy. A place called home.